Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of A Focus on Careers. Today, we've got a very interesting guest who's going to share his non-linear career path. We've got Ben Makepeace from South Australia, and he's going to take us through his trials and tribulations through his career and what he's found interesting, what he's found less interesting, what he's found difficult, and so on. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ben. And Ben, perhaps you can, I'm going to ask what you do, but you do a couple of things. So if you can start off with that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
The things that keep me busy at this current point in my career is my day job as the advisor to the Office of the Lord Mayor here at the City of Adelaide, and as a side gig that I've been doing for 4 years now, I'm a consultant. I'm a small business consultant, and I focus on digital implementation and operational efficiency, and helping those small businesses scale and just become a bit more efficient in that process. I also do some volunteering. We were talking about mentoring just beforehand. I've been a volunteer mentor for Business SA's Young Entrepreneurs Scheme, the Say Yes program now, for a little bit over 4 years.
I've seen you highlight some of those on your LinkedIn, congratulating some of the great successes. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I've had some really incredible course participants that I've been fortunate to mentor over the time. And my latest course participant, Sam, picked up a bit of an award, so it was really great for him to be recognised. And I also mentor undergraduates through the University of South Australia's Business Career Mentoring Program, the BCMP. So those are the 4 things that kind of keep me busy at the moment.
Wow, that's so working at. So let's go back to the start. You've branched out a little bit now, but go back to the final year of school and what was the next step?
I'll talk briefly to year 12, and my understanding from what the school told me is that I had a subject selection that was unique in the state. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that was my understanding at the time, because I did what was then Maths 1, and I did the examined English studies and examined art studies. I did German, and I also did text studies, which was a PASS course back then, the non-examined one. So I had this mix of these, academic subjects and these hands-on subjects, which the school found kind of challenging. And I think that was probably an early warning sign that I wasn't going to have a really clear-cut career. So I finished school. I had a TER back then in the mid-90s, nothing kind of strenuous, but really quite happy with that. And I started a degree in industrial design, and I did the first year of that, and I was really happy with my GPA, and all my course coordinators were very happy. But I just didn't enjoy it. And I had an opportunity to work in a retail company, which I loved. I loved what they did. I'm a big nerd. This was a company called Games Workshop. And so I ended up staying with Games Workshop for about 8 years. And over that time, I became a manager. And one of the things that happened, one of the reasons I stayed there so long, I think, is they gave us really great training and development. It was the first time I took a Myers-Briggs test. It's the first time I did any personal development. It's the first time I had a mentor. It's the first time I had coaching. So they really took a real interest in our personal development. And they allowed us to put our hand up and get involved in stuff. So they'd say, look, we need some of the managers to write some articles for our magazine. We need some of the managers to be involved in rewriting our standards of customer service and store presentation. So there were all these little kind of plugins that you could do. Yep. And I think that variety kept me enthused for 8 years, as well as just an amazing community of people and really wonderful people to work with.
It's quite interesting. You say that Myers-Briggs and so forth. I mean, is this a large retail organisation, or is it because it's quite interesting? I mean, I've worked in retail as well, and certainly nothing like that.
Well, back then, Games Workshop had 30-ish, 31 or 32 stores throughout Australia and New Zealand, and 300 worldwide.
Was it electronic game, like it was console gaming, or
miniatures? So they do war games.
Right.
And they're doing quite well if you follow the UK stock market.
Interesting. That's fantastic. So you did that for 8 years. You came out of your uni course. You're doing very well there. Not 100% committed to it, or didn't feel right, but you're doing very well. Make this jump, 8 years.
Yeah. Then I left because I had this burning thing in me that said, I actually don't want to be the person that's only been in this one job. Which people thought I was a bit kind of, they didn't track what my thinking was, but I had this real gut feeling that was like, I don't want to be the person that's only ever worked in one job, had this one perspective, had this one way of doing things. So I resigned and had I guess an idea that I might indulge my love of real estate and try and sell some houses. And I spent a year doing that and discovered a lot of really good connections, and also discovered that it wasn't a job I enjoyed. So I went back into retail. What I discovered is I need to work with people, and I need to work with teams of people, and probably the more the better. So real estate is quite a lone game a lot of the time. You're doing your own thing. You work with your vendors and your buyers, but there's not that kind of at least for me, there wasn't that team environment. I wasn't in a very big real estate office, so I went to Officeworks, so big box retail, and I thought, well, that'll be good. They're a larger organisation, and there's a lot going on, and I am a fan of stationery, a bit of a stationery nerd, and all of that kind of stuff, and tech. So that's fine. And the similar thing actually happened where they gave me an opportunity to run state induction. So all of the new applicants would do state induction in a group. So I got to do that with some of my peers, and they had implemented a program called the activity organisers, where they had people in each store who were arranging the barbecues and the charity events and the community events and that kind of stuff. So we had those, and then they had an area level for South Australia, and I was nominated for that very quickly and put my hand up to say, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I was a department manager in an Officeworks store, looking after my team and looking after a couple of departments in there, but I had these other two roles that I was doing as well, keeping me busy. And then, shall I keep going?
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly when you told me you've got a very non-linear career. I didn't realize how non-linear it was. This is great, because as I was mentioning earlier when we were talking today, I find that a lot of young people coming out of school, not all of them, but a lot of them, feel that they get out, they get the ATAR. They get into a course at TAFE, at university, or whatever it is, a trade, and they do it forever, and that's it. And as you said, I mean, that's great for people who want to do that, but it's important to understand that there are so many other options out there. And without speaking too soon on your career, it's, you've shown, first of all, that you're brave enough to follow your gut to move on, and a lot of people will stay in a role, sit on their hand, and not take that dive. And secondly, that when opportunities came within those roles, you put your hand up, right? And these are all key attributes to a very successful career. So you've done there. You've nailed Officeworks. You're doing the. They're actually doing very well during the lockdowns, aren't they?
But yes, they are. I should say, so throughout this period, I did some diplomas and cert 3s and 4s and things, and accumulated some bits and pieces there. I got to do my forklift license at Officeworks. That was great, something new and different, which I've kept it current as well. So if I ever need to jump on a forklift, I can.
You never know.
And actually, I was quite happy at Officeworks, but I only ended up spending 18 months there, and it feels longer. And I'm still friends with some of my team from back then, and some of the leadership team from back then, and two of my old bosses as well. Which is for a job I only held for 18 months is really there's something there.
Yeah, you did a lot in 18 months as well. You managed the induction process, and you also got a forklift license. So I can, from the way you described it, it certainly sounded a lot longer than 18 months. And clearly you built up some tremendous relationships, and building up those relationships is a result of your contribution, obviously. I mean, some people work in a place for 20 years and people don't remember them when they leave, right? So that's great.
I think I'm fortunate that I'm predisposed to talking to people. I am a huge extrovert. And so I think that in a sense makes it easier for me to go out and just network with people, because I will just talk to anyone in the room, and I don't know anybody. I'll just go in and talk, which there's a reasonable chunk of the world that finds that terrifying, and that's something, if you can get yourself to introduce yourself to even one person you don't know, and take it one at a time, and don't push yourself. I think that's a really good approach if you can manage that. If you're lucky, and I consider myself lucky in that way, that's completely not an issue for you, then talk to as many people as you feel comfortable and have time to do so. So we moved. I was part of a store that moved locations, and I don't even remember how. I think I never turned off my job alerts or something. And so I was getting these job alerts, and I saw this one it was for an area manager role for a company called Game Traders. And they're a franchise, well, they were back then, a franchise system based in South Australia, their head office, and they have a number of stores around the country. And I thought, gee, they do board games, and they do card games, and they do console games, and they do pop culture stuff. I can't not go for this job, like just have a crack at it. And, so I did, and it turned out I was successful. So I I gave my notice. My manager at the time was super happy for me, and he said, no, that's fantastic. So I started as an area manager, and then over the course of 4 years, I became the national manager.
Wow. I mean, Game Traders were huge. I think I was probably one of the single largest investors in Game Traders because of my son, who all these console games and even the little kits and the toys and the posters and what have you. So they were doing quite well. And I didn't realize they were from Adelaide base. Fascinating.
Yeah, and they certainly were much bigger before the GFC, and then they contracted after the GFC. So when I joined them, they had about 15 stores. And the owner, the managing director, Mark, he'd been a franchisor for a long time, and so he was really a really encouraging mentor as well, and a very different leader to my style. And because he was so involved in the franchising community, he encouraged me to get involved myself. And so I joined the state chapter committee of the Franchise Council here in South Australia, and I became the vice president. And then I became the president, and that got me on the board. And so I was on the board of the Franchise Council for a couple of years as well. And again, that's just having someone make that suggestion and putting up my hand. I flew around the country helping our franchisees with their businesses. So that's actually where the kind of kernel of my consulting came from.
Right.
As a franchise manager, you assist franchisees with growing their business, which is effectively helping a small business owner grow their business just with that layer of franchising sitting on the top of it. And so we eventually stopped operating as a franchise. And so Mark and I flew around the country and helped all our franchisees with that. And then I didn't actually know what I was going to do. And I had gotten another diploma in the mix there, and I've been certified as a franchise executive. That's just an industry kind of certification. And someone who I'd worked with delivering an e-learning platform for the business said, "Oh, Ben, can you do some work for me?" And so then I set up what was my consultancy, and I had to set that up, in a proper way to do that work for them. And that was where Makepeace Consulting kind of grew from. And I picked up a little bit of work, and probably for about maybe 6 months, I had quite a lot of work. And then one of my interests is ballroom dancing. I've been a ballroom dancer for about 18 years. And the studio that I danced at and still dance at said, "Oh, we'd like to work with you." And I said, "Well, I think there's some stuff we can do together for sure, so let's do that." And so we did quite a lot of work there, and that was still under the consulting banner. And then they said, "Well, we're looking to scale, and we're looking for someone to run the business while we get into scaling." And so I took on that role, and I stopped consulting really a lot. I just did a little bit on the side from then, and I joined the business there. So that was Quick Steps. They're a dance studio here in Adelaide. And so I was their operations manager for 3 years while we I guess looked at all their systems and processes, tried to make them suitable for scalability, so opening another studio or more, and looked at recruitment processes, branding, marketing, the whole works.
I think getting into the operational side. I'd had some experience myself in retail, as I said, and then I'd my background in finance, and then into the operational side of things. And I believe that once you've embedded yourself into that operational function, you certainly have a better perspective of how an organization runs, how it should run, where the bottlenecks are, etc. It becomes, you develop almost a sixth sense to these sort of issues. You walk in, you understand what the problem is pretty quickly. And, whether it's a multinational, whether it's a franchise, whether it's a small business, it really is all the same issues, all the same problems, but at a different scale. So, interesting.
You're spot on. I had this lightning bulb moment one time. I was sitting at a franchise conference next to the operations manager for a huge franchise, 500 plus stores, loads of turnover, really well known. And I thought, geez, I've got nothing to offer here actually with my 15 stores, and you've got your 500 and these fancy systems. And then I was talking with them, and they said, "Oh, this thing is happening." And I thought, "Oh, wow, that's exactly what I have happened, except that I have like one store do it, you'll have 7. And it was exactly the same problems, just as you say, George, where there was just scale and turnover differences, really. That was it. Otherwise, it was all exactly the same.
Yep.
Mm.
And
I agree with you. When you're in that operational space, you start to see the connectedness of things, and that helps you piece things together and come to those solutions.
Yeah, from a human resources perspective, I've seen the most successful heads of people and culture, or heads of HR, or whatever we want to call it today, are the ones that have had a strong operational background. Because when you're at 30,000 feet looking down on the whole thing, understanding the mechanics at that level, at that ground level, helps you to make better decisions and to sort of understand where your risks are, where your weaknesses are, where your scalability is, etc. So it's a tremendous background to have.
So during that time, I got itchy again for learning. And because I never finished an undergrad, I went back to my uni and I said, look, I'm interested at studying again. What do you think? And I think I just bailed up the business school. And I said, this is what I'm thinking. And I had a meeting with the uni business school, and they said, you could do a Bachelor of Business, no worries, but you actually have enough experience in management to do an MBA, to do an executive MBA.
Wow.
And so I was floored at that. I wasn't expecting that. So that was really exciting, and I jumped into that wholeheartedly at the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm putting the finishing touches on that MBA now. I've got one course to go, and I guess that's where things start to really shift for me. I did the MBA because it is a generalist qualification, and I'm reasonably allergic to specialization, and so I thought that was fantastic. It's very versatile because you can apply MBA principles to organizations regardless of industry, and so that's very helpful. And the uni that I have done my MBA through, they have a partnership with the Australian Institute of Company Directors, and so I was able to do the Company Directors course within my
I saw
MBA
that.
as well.
Yeah.
And because I'd had time on the Franchise Council's board as a not-for-profit, not as a non-executive director, and they're a not-for-profit, I was really excited by the prospect of more board opportunities in my future. And I thought, well, as a generalist who's done a whole bunch of stuff but nothing specific, an MBA plus the Company Directors course are really great benchmarks for putting myself out there to say, mm-hmm. Look, I'm qualified enough to be on your board, but I'm going to fill that role that is not filled by your accountant, your lawyer, your industry specialist. I'm going to be the other one, the creative thinker, or the problem kind of creator.
Problem creator.
The status quo challenger, because I'm going to not have those same viewpoints.
Yeah.
So that's I guess, and the uni offered, and a lot of unis do offer, career counselling, and UniSA offers two types of mentoring programs. The one that I am a mentor in, the Business Career Mentor Program, is for undergrads, and then there's an executive partnership program that they offer for MBA students, where they pair you with an executive partner or a senior executive out in the various industries. And so I've had two mentors now over the course of my study, and it has been incredible. And I probably wouldn't be where I am without the help and guidance and troublemaking of my own mentors, asking me really challenging questions and making me look at things differently, and then giving me the confidence that they see, and letting me see that confidence as well.
That's important. That's an important factor to share with the audience, particularly younger people, undergraduates, or people in year 11 or 12, etc. That to seek that guidance, to seek a mentor that's going to really push you out of your comfort zone and ask you the questions that probably are deeply buried inside and you don't really want to ask yourself, but they bring those out. Great.
And it's like you've read this story already. So both of my mentors, within the same week, in fact, we were catching up and just casually said, Ben, do you think you're as happy as you think you are in your career? That's a very helpful question to ask me on some idle Tuesday. And that really sparked me, because I thought, well, actually, I want to be using some of these skills and knowledge that I have, and I want to really be putting them into practice in a challenging way. But and to a certain extent, I already was. But what I wanted to do was, I came up with this direction, I guess, which was that I wanted to have a long-lasting positive impact on the world and its people, starting in Adelaide. So I thought, I'll start in Adelaide. What can I do? And I started having, buying people coffees or glasses of wine as was appropriate to the relationship, and asking them, given that this is my mission, this is what I want to achieve now, and I figured out I want to work in organisations that are a bit bigger, where there's a bunch of stuff going on. There's maybe that bigger scope, that state level scope, or something along those lines. Where do you think I should be looking? Who should I talk to next? And every cup of coffee I had, or cup of tea, or glass of wine, people were sharing me their stories of how they ended up where they were, and telling me who I should talk to next, and giving me suggestions as to what organisations I could look at. And I was cold calling people effectively. I was messaging people on LinkedIn saying, look, you don't know me, but your name came up and this is my situation. I'd love to buy a coffee sometime if you've got the time. And what you find is that lots of people have time to, half an hour to give you time for a coffee and a chat, to share their story and to give you some thoughts. If you can fit in with their schedule, which is, I think, the respectful thing to do.
That's absolutely right.
I was really privileged. That pretty much, most people said yes, sure. Some people just gave me a phone call. Others I had lunch with. Others I had, dinner with. Others just had a coffee in the morning sometime. Whatever worked. And honestly, for probably 6 months, I was having 2 or 3 of those a week.
Man.
And eventually someone said to me, you know what, Ben, you should look at local government. You should look at state government, because the departments are doing good things and you can make a lot of good change. You can impact really positively at council or at state government. And I had thought I wouldn't fit, actually. So that was when I started to look there. And then at the end of the year, I resigned from my job because I had gotten the business, I had gotten all of my projects to a point where I was comfortable handing them over without, leaving anyone really hanging. The business was doing really well. We'd recovered from the COVID lockdowns, and so I felt comfortable from a turnover perspective that the business was going to be, okay. And that I wasn't.
You don't want to burn your bridges. I mean, that's another lesson there, and that's clear. Of all the roles that you seem to have left, you've left on a very positive note, and you've never burnt those bridges. And I think that's another important lesson to learn. It's a great takeaway from this conversation. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so that was really challenging. So that was at the start of this year. But I added a little bit more study in as well. I started a program here called the Governance Leadership Foundation program, which is a 10-month-long leadership course that the Leaders Institute do. It's quite involved. It's essentially a blend of leadership development from a tools and kind of practical application perspective, blended with some real deep, challenging personal kind of work, set against a backdrop of examining the most polarized, the most complex issues that we face in society, things like homelessness and immigration and the way that we look at the prison system or the legal system. So, all these really challenging issues with loads of stakeholders that all have different opinions, and you're never going to have a beautiful black or white answer for. So they put you through this course and they set that against it. And so I ramped up my consulting again for a little while, and I was having all these cups of coffee and glasses of wine, and I just applied for jobs, and I talked to people, and I was broadly unsuccessful in getting a job for about 6 months. Right. I had some really good opportunities where I got very close and was down to the wire. And I guess one thing for the viewers is, job hunting can be quite an endurance piece sometimes, and it's almost never you. Almost never you. Having hired so many people in my time, the cuts that you make, the lines that you draw across a criteria are as much to do with whoever's doing the hiring, what they're looking for, the existing culture, the team, that's all the stuff that's in the background. And it's very rarely the actual applicant who has kind of bombed out, I guess.
Tremendous insight, brilliant insight. That's great. That's a great from both a hiring and a recruiting perspective you're speaking. So that's quite interesting. Thanks.
It doesn't help you. You're still going to feel bad.
Yes, of course.
But my position is to try and remember, well, I got to the last 2 or the last 5 or the last whatever out of however many. Seek the feedback, ask them if there was anything that you could have done differently, or why they made their decision. And sometimes they'll tell you, and sometimes they will not. But I met a lot of really great people who I continued to ask questions about, and people started sending me jobs that they thought I should apply for.
Wow.
And so that was how I came across this one. My mentor sent this to me. My old boss sent this to me, and a friend of mine with whom I did the AICD course, I was talking with, and I asked them about it, and they said, yeah, well, it's great. Like, it's a great place to work. You would do really well in that role. So I thought, well, I better apply for it now. 3 people have told me it would be good.
And clearly it has.
Yeah, so I was really excited to be successful in this one, and it's been a really incredible role.
And you're able to manage clearly you've got the MBA, and you've got all the courses that you continue to do, and your thirst for knowledge and broadening your mind and so forth. And you're doing the Office of Lord Mayor, and you're doing Makepeace Consulting as well, and that's okay. That they're happy with that. Everything works well with that.
The consulting work that I do is really minor. When I take on a full-time role, I leave it as a bit of a on the back burner. So I have some clients that I have ongoing work that has been a significant amount of ongoing work. They're fun to work with. There's not heaps of work, and so I maintain that.
So, question: the governance leadership, is that a SA specific body, or is it a national or international, or?
It's a South Australian organisation called the Leaders Institute.
Right. Okay.
And the program is called the Governors Leadership Program. The Governors Leadership Foundation Program. It's the GLF.
Right. Interesting. So you've done. Obviously, you've gone through this at your own pace. You've not set yourself unrealistic parameters. You've gone with the flow. You can say maybe the first job could have been good luck, but clearly the track record indicates that it's good management, right? You've obviously got the right attitude. You're always put your hand up for what's on offer. You're prepared to listen to others to get that feedback. That's something that we, basically is a human flaw, really, not wanting to hear what others have to say, and taking it on board. You're not afraid to push the boundaries. Great communicator, very sociable, gets the job done. And on top of all of that, you've had this yearning to give back to the community, to do something good. And you're starting off in South Australia, and the objective is to maybe United Nations or something down the track, possibly. It's
I think I'll continue to just follow the opportunities that pop up. I like to focus on doing a really good job with whatever it is that I'm doing.
Right.
And I guess I find that if I have this idea in my head, that I'll just do a good job and I'll talk to people and I'll put my hand up as opportunities present themselves, then it will work out.
Cool. So what has been for you? I mean, there must have been some disheartening moments, not just the jobs that you applied for, but what have been some of the hard lessons you've learned through your career? One or two, you know.
Oof. I think one hard lesson that we learn as humans is that you will make mistakes, you will stuff things up, and people will get angry with you for doing that. That's essentially unavoidable over the course of a career. And certainly the more kind of prevalent thinking these days is that you learn from your mistakes and you are given a safe environment at work to make those mistakes and learn from them, as long as you are genuine in your conduct. You haven't made those mistakes maliciously or through carelessness. But if you just genuinely thought you were doing the right thing and you've stuffed up because you didn't know, or you forgot, or you did something the wrong way, or whatever, as long as you kind of take your lumps a little bit, I guess, you kind of listen to the reprimand that you receive, and then you learn from that and do better in the future, and you're genuine about that approach, people actually respect that quite a lot. You know, they will judge you by your scars. Is a phrase that I was once told. You know, you're gonna get scars, metaphoric scars, and if you say, yeah, look, I stuffed that up, and here's how I fixed that and learned from it, and this is how I conducted myself through that process. But that is hard. That's a hard lesson to learn, to be comfortable with the knowledge that you will stuff things up.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's
and not everyone will like you. That's the other hard lesson.
Sorry.
And the other lesson is that not everyone will like you.
Oh, yeah. Well, if that was going to be a problem, I'd be a sad soul by now.
and that's a hard one to digest for some people too. Again, some people are lucky and that doesn't really bother them, and they get that and they just get on with the job. And other people are really, really find it challenging to think actually that those people won't like me. And I had to relearn that in the last kind of year, I think, within myself, and to relearn that being me authentically in each situation within the context of that situation means that some people are not going to like me, and that's okay. Those aren't the people that I'm going to want to hang out with. Those aren't the people that are going to give me my opportunities. Other people who do like me because of my authentic self within the context of that situation, they will like me, and they will be the ones that will give me the opportunities. And that was something that I had to relearn.
I think authenticity is an important factor. You mentioned earlier, and I kept a mental note of it, and I want to go back to it quickly, was your preference. You wanted to work you didn't want to work in isolation. That's another thing that some people are really, really want to sit down at their desk or sit down whatever it is and just be on their own and do their own thing. And others thrive in a more team-oriented environment. So how did you clearly the real estate was in isolation. You're up against everyone else. It's who can get the most sales, who can get, so that was it the competition or was it the isolation?
It was the isolation.
Right.
Yeah. So over my career, the times when I've been my most unhappy have been when I've been in a room or an office by myself, and that's kind of normal. Right. If I'm in an environment where there are lots of people around, I can go and see them. I can go have meetings. I can run around on a shop floor in some instances, or in this instance, I'm interacting with multiple teams throughout our organisation all the time, every day. Yeah. Happy, absolutely happy.
I mean, I think this is one of the big struggles of the lockdowns that we've had. You know, people have been removed from that environment where they can engage with others and into this isolation. It's been a struggle. Certainly talking to friends and colleagues, even talking to family. I know my daughter, for example, was the one that wanted to stay in the office when they were being told, well, we're going to work from home. She just couldn't, couldn't. She had her routine. She loved the engagement. She loved the interaction. It was very, very important. So yeah. That's amazing. And so now in the Lord Mayor, you're an advisor. So you're an advisor from an operational standpoint, or is it broader than that? Is it?
It's difficult to define the scope because it's very much driven by what's coming through council and the current issues and the things that are on the Lord Mayor's kind of radar. So it is very diverse, and it involves a mix of kind of ad hoc reactionary things and medium and long-term kind of strategic projects that are going on. So it's difficult to narrow it down much more than that. Brilliant. It's fantastic. You're busy. Your schedules, as you said, is like Swiss cheese, right? Solid with a few lots of holes somewhere that you can make. And I appreciate you making time for us. If I mean, this is a community service, we want to try it like yourself. I just wanted to give back to the community. I've had a long, extensive career, and I just wanted to do something that I thought was would help others. So thank you very much for making your contribution, giving up your valuable time. If anybody's got any questions for Ben, please put them below in the comments or drop an email to the Focus on Careers email address, and we'll get back to you. Please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like the YouTube channel, and drop us a line if you've got an interesting career you'd like to share, or if you know someone who does. So thanks again for listening. Thanks so much, Ben. Sincerely appreciate your time with us today, and all the very best for the future. Thank you very much. Pleasure.